The following is a KPB MediaWorks production.
Choose your fighter.
What's going on, guys? We're back with another episode of KPBCast. This is Rodimus Prime bringing it to you live. And we're going to talk about a couple of our sponsors before we get into our show. I want to mention Technic Sport and use the code KPB to get 10% off any purchase on their website. They got some really good chairs, so check it out. We also want to give a shout out to our homie Saltamia and her lovely artistry in forms of keychains, stickers, plushies, and much more. So check them out at saltamia.com. And we also want to give a shout out to Acquire, which is the makers of our wonderful jerseys. We have a code KPB that will save you 15% on your order. So go check them out over at acquire.ca. And now we want to talk about this person, this guest, one of my favorite guys in the community. Very awesome dude, hailing from Caribbean roots in Dominican Republic. My buddy, Gilbert Matos, a.k.a. Treblig-Punisher. What's going on, my man?
Hey, Rodney. Nothing much. Thanks a lot for having me. It's actually an honor to actually see you again, and for the two of us to get to interact once again.
Yes. It's been a while. I know we're living in a COVID-19 world now, and it's been rough. How have you been dealing with that?
I've been dealing with it, fairly well for the most part because I've been doing a lot of, I would say homeschooling myself, in terms of programming and many other things. So it didn't hit me as hard because of that, because I was not going out as much. But yeah, it's definitely been very challenging.
I hear you had the first part done easy. You were at home already.
Oh yeah,
Kind of. Are you considered like an introvert? Do you not like to be out, or are you like a home person?
I would say that I'm kind of a hybrid because, and I think I've moved more. Like I've been more and more flexible as the years have gone by, because at first I was like super introverted, so I didn't like to be in crowded spaces and whatnot. But now I can just flow with how the situation demands. So I can be most of my time alone,
Mhm.
or with a lot of people.
You're kind of like me then. I'm an ambivert. That's what the term is called. And
Oh,
depending on the situation, you know, I can be around people or I can be at home. I personally don't like people much, so it's okay if I'm not around people. I used to really be like to be around people, and then over the years that changed. So I understand that you're flexible with any situation, but you would prefer to be at home, right? If you had your choice.
yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Awesome. So I know you've been into graphic design. Is that mainly your focus these days? Is that like self-taught stuff? And how is that going for you?
Yeah, for the most part, graphic design has been a thing that it's actually number one. My that's what I studied in college,
Mhm.
and it's been for the most part graphic design, programming. I haven't done much gaming lately. I've been working a lot, but yeah, I've just tried to go back and try to get better, like on that aspect, on the yeah that portion of the spectrum. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of graphic design, and I've been doing a lot of programming, as I said before, game development, and I'm trying to get into front end development, front end web development as well.
Okay, that's a lot. You're going to be a tech asset to one of these tech companies if that's your path. Or what is your path? Like where do you plan to go with this?
Well, at the moment, one thing that I like about programming, right, is the fact that you can create tools to make other things that you do a lot better, a lot easier, right? So I'm looking more into the field of tooling. I recently made an app called Clipboard History, and it's an app that I just use, when you're copying a lot of text and you want to make sure that the text, you want to be able to get it later on, and that's the thing you can do with the built-in Windows application of the like the built-in Clipboard History. So I did that because when you're programming, you're copying text a lot, and sometimes you need a line here and a line there, and sometimes you need to quickly save that as a text file for later use. So I
Listen,
made that using C Sharp.
I'm going to need that app because I'm learning Java and my brain hurts every day. Like
Yeah,
I
I
can't
yeah,
stand it. It's tedious. like I'm using a Blue Jay to learn stuff, and it's just like
Mhm.
I feel like my veins pulsing in my brain because I hate tedious things, but
Yeah.
it's a means to an end for me. So I would definitely like to know more about that happening at time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I
um,
also learned like a little
go
bit.
ahead.
I'll say, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say I was learning Java a couple years ago, and then I stopped because Marvel was was popping. I was getting better at the game. I was loving the community, and so I stopped that. I learned like the very basic stuff, and then years went by, and I went into game development, and I learned Game Maker Studio too. It was Game Maker Studio at first, and that is very similar to JavaScript. I didn't know that. And after learning that, it was a lot easier for me to transition into learning other programming languages, like like Python. And Python came after I learned C sharp. And then I realized that there's very little difference in terms of how things are done in different languages. So like the syntax, the variations are very like little, if I could say it like that. Yeah, go ahead.
But when we talk about Gilbert, the aspiring coder, the aspiring graphic artist, what about Gilbert individual? Well, where do you tell us some of your like beginnings? Like, what were your beginnings like? Where were you born and raised? What was early childhood like for you?
Okay, so I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I came to the U.S. when I was 19, and one of the things that I've always loved is art. So I've always been an artist. That's one thing. I love drawing, and that's one thing I used to do when I was little, and then I would stop for many years. I'm also into chess. I love chess, and what else? I love puzzles, and I love fitness as well. I'm trying to get a lot more into that lately. I've always enjoyed working out. I love gaming, as you'll know already. I'm a huge fan of fighting games. I can say that that's definitely one of my, if not my favorite type of game to play. I love horror games, survival horror games, of course. Shout outs to RE,
Yes.
Silent Hill, and some other games as well. I love platformers. That's like my favorite genre to actually make in terms of game development. I'd say that I'm way too obsessed with platformers at this point. What else? Yeah, I enjoy reading and writing, and I also enjoy uh, languages as well. So far, I only know Spanish and English. English as my second
Okay.
language, and
Um,
yeah,
polyglot is the term when you know multiple languages. Is that like a goal for you, like to become like
yeah,
multilingual?
yeah. I would love to learn either Japanese as a third language,
Hmm.
and what else? And probably French.
Okay.
Probably French. Yeah, it's a toss up between French and Portuguese, but Portuguese, is very similar to Spanish because it's a Latin language. So
Mm.
the learning would be like very little. It would be just like the little caveats and
Yeah,
the
those
little,
caveats, the
small
little
differences. Yeah.
rules and
Yeah.
nuances that come with the language changes and
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
They say English is one of the hardest languages to learn, um, because of like how like one word can mean five different things, and like then the pronunciations or the way it spells changes it. So it's considered to the rest of the world one of one of the hardest languages to learn.
That is true.
You're from the Dominican Republic, so
Hmm.
where did your English like start to develop? Was that back at home or when you came here?
Back at home, like way back in the days. We're talking
Mm.
about, I don't know, when I was like 9, 10 or something like that. Since I've always been into gaming, and I come from a very poor family. We didn't have, we couldn't afford to have consoles or anything like that, let alone like an Atari or whatever. Any handhelds
Mm.
were just off the charts. We would get like knockoffs that would have
Yeah.
like, the regular games, Tetris,
Or like the
some racing
50
game.
games in one kind of thing, like one of
Yeah,
those
the one
things.
that
I
said like,
remember those.
and yeah, like the ones that would say 9,999, but it was like the same game just flipped with some other
Yeah.
weird shenanigan. So that was the thing. But it wasn't until I was like 11 where we would require to get a an English to Spanish and Spanish to English dictionary, right, to translate things for school. And my grandmother got me a dictionary, and it was a blue and yellow dictionary called Hit, and I was
Okay.
like, It was actually kind of thick. It was like this thick. I was like, damn, this thing is like what do you call the telephone guide?
Oh yeah, the telephone books. Oh my god, that's such a relic these days. I remember
Yeah.
being excited as a kid to see the telephone book, like a big yellow book, and like
Oh
it had so many
yeah, that was
uses. You can prop things on it, and it was just like
yeah.
you can look at all the businesses and stuff. I used to be so enamored as a kid, and now I haven't seen a telephone book in ages. You know.
Yeah. I remember just looking through it and just be like, wow, there's so much information here. But yeah, when it comes to the dictionary stuff, right? I was into games, and I remember that when I first got my first console, my mom bought it for me, and it was I used a PS1, and I only had one game. One game had no memory card, and the struggle when you have no memory card. That
You're
means that
not
you're
turning off
replaying the
that
same
system.
game. You're like, oh, and then oh my god, the story just gets bigger. But here's the main like the goodies of the plot. It was Spyro, Year of the Dragon,
Wow. Okay. All right.
and that
So
game
you didn't
just
turn off your system,
blew
did
my
you? There's
mind.
no way you. There's no way you turned off your system. You couldn't save.
Yeah,
I mean, that
but
was that. I know that was the tech for us. Like, for
yeah,
people that didn't have like memory cards, we had to not turn off the system because if we did, we were losing our progress. And I mean, I
hmm
personally didn't have that issue, but I had friends that had that issue, but they didn't have, and they
Oh
were
man.
expensive. Like they were like 30, $40 for memory card. I remember a PS1 memory card back in the day, and
and
you
and
had if you had. I'm sorry, there were games that took up the whole card.
yep,
There was games that took up the entire. The card had 15 blocks. That was a memory unit called. It was like blocks, and each Sony card had 15. You didn't want to buy a knockoff card because your files would get erased after like
yep,
3 times. So there was maybe one non Sony brand that you can buy that didn't erase your stuff. But anything else you bought that was a knockoff memory card, it was gonna die in a week. So you
yeah.
literally had to buy Sony original memory cards or have the struggle of not turning off your system to play the game. I remember that.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But again, this was like a whole year with no memory card playing the game. And one of the things that I loved about that game was the voice acting, and that's one of the things that made me love English as a language, because it was like the voice acting was just so vibrant. It was really cheesy, but it's like you don't notice the cheese up until like you mature,
Mhm.
especially like regardless of whether you know the language or not. This is the thing that you're
Right.
like, oh my god, that's so cool. And the colors, everything was just great, and the way the game, the character control was actually amazing, still amazing to this day. But yeah, I love that, and I was getting stuck on levels, and since there's a lot of text in the game, I would just write down some of the words, and eventually a lot of the words repeat because there are verbs that are used the most. They're like the verb to be and stuff like that. So I would do a lot of writing and reading, and I would just do a lot of translation, and that was a lot of trial and error because sometimes you would translate something and you're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, and then you go and pick the next meaning, and you're like, I don't think this is it, and you start just piecing together the little jiggies, and then you get the whole puzzle, and you're like, so this is what this is saying.
You know,
And I was doing
while I
that for
commend
many
you,
years.
I commend you for your work ethic on like translating. And how old were you at the time when you were doing this? Like 9, 10,
I was 11 at this point.
11? Okay.
Yeah,
So okay,
like around 11 to
so
12.
you're an 11-year-old because you're so enamored in the game and the language. You're learning how to speak and read and write English basically while you're playing this. Like now, I remember in my early teens, I started getting access to import games. This was like Super Nintendo stuff back in the day, and we had stores that sold import games. Some of these games you wouldn't see in the states for years. So I had games like the Contra 3, the Alien Wars. I played that game here a year and a half before it came out in the States because we got the import. But of course, it came in Japanese text.
Oh my
And
god.
yeah, from one game into another, I gotta say, even though that's commendable on you doing that, you were doing too much because I was not going to sit there and learn, like the kanji,
No.
and try to, figure out what they're saying. Everything was just a straight feel. It was a straight guess. It was trial and error to learn the buttons and what they did, and eventually I learned it, but I wasn't going to do what you did. So I definitely commend you for that.
No, yeah, that's way beyond what I was doing because it is very abstract because languages are abstract regardless, right? Because those are things that you need to learn how they work. And when it comes to kanji, you have like these are logographs. So you're basically trying to understand what an image means rather than just looking at the same words using the same alphabet that you already are familiar with.
That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. But I definitely I commend you for having such a work ethic to do that, which I think is something that's a foundation of who you are. And I think you've always been someone that's had a strong work ethic, and it's shown in in your gameplay and in the community you've been involved in, which we'll get to later on in this podcast. But I want to ask, like, okay, we know your first system was Spyro, but it kind of sets off the platformer thing for you. What was?
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to fighting games, or what was that like?
Okay, so here's the funny story. So years later down the line, I met a guy through another friend, right? And he happened to had played fighting games before, and I remember buying the game after like a little while after knowing him, and he said, "Oh, I've played this game," and for the most part, his name is Carlos Nova. He's a very very dear friend of mine, and he was the one who taught me the quarter circle motions. We used to call them like half circles because a lot of people in the DR they didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
We call quarter circles just half circles, and so he said, "Oh, I played this game before," and then whenever I saw him playing, I'm like, "Son, how do you do that?" It's like, "Well, I don't know. I just went like this," and I'm like, that doesn't help much, but okay, can you show me what you did? Oh yeah, you score like this, and I'm like, okay, but this goes even more further back. We're talking about when I was like 5 or 4. We lived in a second floor, and on the first floor, we had a family member who was married to a woman, right? And he had like 2 kids, and what they would do is like they would get the Super Nintendo, right? And they would play Street Fighter 2. Now, here's the problem. I was like 4 or 5, and whenever I wanted to play, they didn't let me. They're like, no, you don't know how to play. You don't know how to play. And I would just be like, oh wow, that's so cool. That's so cool. At the time, I don't know, but it's just so interesting that even from a very young age, I always ran into people who had consoles at the time, and they had them, when they were popping big time. So like the first platform I ever played was Super Mario Brothers.
The original NES one?
Was it the original?
Okay.
Huh?
How was that for you?
Oh my God, that was just mind blowing. I'm like, wow, I'm controlling this little guy and I'm just jumping and I'm just collecting coins, and he gets bigger and then he gets a flower and like the fireball is like, my brain was just all over the place. Yeah, so it was just amazing. It was a feeling that you can't replicate like something like that. Sometimes it's just way too hard to put into words. But
I think gaming is one of those things where it either, when you first get introduced to it, it's either going to captivate you right then, or it's never going to captivate you. So it's like the moment you first come in contact with a video game, it's going to just change. You're going to decide right then and there if you're going to be a gamer or not. Like,
yeah,
I've seen it all the time. It's either wow, this is life changing, or okay, this is nice. Yeah. Go play basketball now. And everyone's different. So
that is true.
So, but of course, you were captivated. So, did you ever beat it, or how long did it take you to beat?
I never beat it because I would have to go to my neighbor's house to play it, right? And that's what I was getting to. A lot of times, a lot of the games that I played and in consoles I tried were because I ran into someone who became my friend, and they had a console because either one of their parents lived in the U.S. or somebody gave it to them, right? So that became a very common thing throughout my entire life. There was always someone who had a console who liked me, and that was my first instance with like fighting games. The second one was after knowing that one of my cousins actually had a Super Nintendo, right? But the mini version, right? And he had Mortal Kombat. I think he got Mortal Kombat 2. No, somebody lent it to him. So he a lot of the games he had borrowed. So it was Mortal Kombat 2 and Killer Instinct. And here's the thing that you might be familiar with. My cousin knew a guy who had like all these games, and they had like all the cheat codes and all the also the special moves and whatnot. And for those who are not aware of this, because the Dominican Republic is a third world country, there's a lot of shitty stuff that happens when it comes to games and merchandise. So a lot of games that would come with the manual would get stripped of whatever goodies it came with. So you would be sold just the game with the game case and nothing else. Of course, this was not always the case. There were a lot of places where they will actually sell you the entire thing. But if you went to a place where you could get it cheaper, right? That was the thing. And a lot of times the manual would also be lost. And yeah, a lot of guys just had a notebook full of all the inputs and whatnot. And he knew that guy. And the guy had it all. Like he was the librarian, just holding all the the dark magic secrets and whatnot. and I remember that he used to cover the freaking controller. He's like, "Oh, let's play." And he used to put like the shirt over the controller and be like, and I'm like, "How do you do that?" It's like, nah, I can't tell you, man. I can't tell you, man. And I'm like, "Bro, come on, bro. It's not fair." No, I can't tell you. This guy told me not to tell anybody. And I'm I don't understand. Why the hell did they do that? And then, the first thing he taught me was how to do the bicycle kick with Liu Kang. And you know what we would do? At the beginning of every round, we would just be holding A.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Round 1.
Fight.
You know what I found out? Actually, I had Mortal Kombat 2 for the Super Nintendo, and I used to have the rapid fire controller, right? So if you rapid fire at A, right, which was the right kick, whatever it was, right kick, and the move was you hold down right kick, right, and let it go, right. So what happened was the game would register holding down the rapid A as pressing the button but holding at the same time. So what happens is it would just be like frame perfect back to back bicycle kicks.
That's crazy.
And I would just cheat the CPU. And like the CPU wouldn't know what to do. Like it would just be stuck. And I think I was so nice in the game. I was like, yeah, see, look like this. Like, But that the manual thing is something else too, because people don't know that struggle. Like a lot of the games, a lot of the 8-bit, you needed to have the manual. You needed to have the manual because there was no online. We didn't have internet then. Or internet was around, but wasn't made public to people in the early 90s and late 80s, right? So, like, you didn't have information about anything, right? So, if you didn't have the manuals to certain games, that meant the difference in you being able to play the game. Because there was no way you would figure out things without knowing that you can do them from the manual. Unless you went through trial and error. And I can name a list of games that I was simply stuck because I didn't know there was a feature or ability you can do because I had no access to a manual. That was crazy. It was a role playing game called Ultima. There was 3 Ultima that came out, and that's that game. That series dates from like the early 80s on PC. It was Ultima, right? And it was Quest of the Avatar. That's what it was. And it comes with a book that's like a third of an inch thick, right? All glossy, and it's like the size of the box, right? If you lose that book, it's like $30, and you need that book to beat the game because there's no way you need to reference everything in that book, And it was like, so people don't know that struggle, right? Because you go online and there's 1,000 resources.
That's it.
There are things, it's just a wonderful place, right? But yeah, they don't know that struggle. So I can imagine like them taking out the book in your situation and selling it separately.
Yep, that's one
Have they
that was
done
a
that?
very common thing.
Oh wow, okay, that's
That
crazy.
was a very common thing. Not they still do that, but it doesn't matter
Uh,
anymore because again, now games can actually have like the in-game manual. Because a lot of times back in the day,
mm,
we had these big ass manuals, but because there were hardware limitations, you couldn't fit it
mm,
all in one thing. You had to put in
right.
what mattered the most, and then whatever else you could just print out. And it was actually a nice thing, right? Because you can't smell like you can't smell the tutorial. You're like it can be like that. You're like, yeah, wow. Now,
Mhm.
when you have the manual, right? You know how the texture of the paper feels like, and and the smell of brand new paper or
Brand new
that
game,
kind of
right? The
paper.
brand new, like the
Oh my
glossy,
god.
like full
Oh
color.
yeah.
They were full color. I mean, as the years went by, they started getting cheap. Like they started getting
Hmm.
thinner. Then they were in black and
Yeah.
white. And then it
Hmm.
was like just literally controls, and that's it. And they just have a
Hmm.
whole backstory in the manual of the game, so
Yeah.
you felt immersed in the game. And then even if the game had its own story, there was more story in the manual, right? Like
Hmm.
if you ever
Hmm.
owned the Zelda game from back in the day, and I still have my copy of Zelda, the gold one, and those manuals were so intriguing. Like I could just read the manual all day because that's how how much information, how well drawn it was, full color. Like you said, the paper was quality. I miss stuff like that.
Yeah. I was a little sad when I got like I think I got my PS3. I think in
Mhm.
PS3 was like the second console I ever owned, and I bought it myself too. Um, but it was after I came to the US, of course. Uh, and I got the manual, and I was like, hmm, it doesn't have much. I'm like, yeah, the controls, but I was expecting like a little more. I don't know. And then eventually you get used
Doesn't
to it
that
because
feel? I'm sorry. I had to say, like, doesn't it feel empowering when you buy your first like console? You could probably compare it to buying like your first car or house, maybe. With, like, buy your
yeah,
first
yeah,
console with your own money, and your
yeah,
parents telling you, no parent can tell you can't buy that, or they're not gonna buy it for you. Like as a
yeah.
gamer, that's like, oh man, this is like my console. I paid for
Oh
this.
my
Like,
god, dude, that was
yeah.
life changing because I bought it right, and this was like because I knew that the Marvel 3 was a thing. After 10 years before that, my friend
Mm.
had told me, "Oh, they're never gonna make a Marvel 3 game," and I'm like, "But bro, you never know." I said, they're never gonna. But again, he was just speaking out of ignorance because we were both ignorant, really ignorant at the time. Because we were kids, we were just like 14. We are talking about like a Marvel 3 because we got a taste of Marvel 1 and Marvel 2. Marvel 2
Mm.
not so much on my end, but his brother who's like 7 years older than him had a video game club, right? Where people used to go and rent a console and a TV, and they would play whatever games they had available at the time. And of course, that's the reason why my friend was like light years ahead of me in fighting games and whatever other games because he already had them and he had played it, he could play them whatever he wanted. And we talked about that. And when I saw the trailer for Marvel 3, I almost had a heart attack because I was like, I'm like, they're making. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe this thing. And of course, I was like mad late to the party because
Yeah,
there have been a lot more trailers and whatnot. But it's like, imagine. I don't know if you do you watch anime, right?
of course, yeah.
So imagine watching a series that only takes place every Sunday, but now imagine the person had been out of the loop and the series had been pretty far into development, and now you just found out
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, and then you just start binge watching, and that's exactly what I
Also,
was doing on
also
YouTube.
you didn't even see the first announcements. Then you saw like when it was about to be released, probably, or like when everything
I,
was
I
already.
think I got to know Marvel 3 when
Mhm.
it was either about to release or when it was released already. But I think it was the first one. But I didn't get to play the vanilla. I never got to play that, and that was
Okay.
because I couldn't afford it, and I was brand new into New York. That was another thing. There was some other things that I had to sort out, like college and whatnot. But When I got my PS3, oh my god, I got Marvel 3. That was the first game I ever owned on PS3, and I'm like, I don't care about anything else. This is the game I need to have. I want
So
it. I need it.
let me dial it back just a little bit. So you get the PS3, you get Marvel. Was that your catalyst in terms of being good at fighting games, or were you getting good before that? Were you getting good at other games before that? Were you getting experience as a fighting game player in general, or was
I
Marvel
was
3 the
yeah.
catalyst?
So I was getting. I already had like let's say like 6 years, 6+ years of experience before touching Marvel 3, because the game that I owned, my first fighting game was definitely Street Fighter Alpha 3. And I was a sucker for Ryu. I loved the, I just loved the art style of Alpha 3. In my opinion, Alpha 3's like art style is like the pinnacle of what the Alpha series should look like at that point. Like Capcom has been just polishing up, on whatever they had, and even though they had a lot of reused assets, right? I just feel like 3 just cemented the style, and everything was very, uniform in terms of backgrounds and characters and the music and the announcer. Yeah, Alpha 3 was the game where I started getting better at fighting games, because when I fought my friend, right, he would actually teach me. He was one of the first people to be like, okay, yeah, this is how you do this. Like there were no secrets. Whatever he knew,
Right.
I would know eventually. And he he only had like one limitation, and it was that he would just play by feel. He wouldn't care if he doesn't know something. He would try to figure it out. And I'm not about figuring out if there's a resource that I can use beforehand, because I don't
Right.
like wasting time. And we would play, and a week later, he was struggling against me.
Mm.
A couple
So it took
weeks
a whole
in,
week.
yeah, and a couple weeks in, I'm beating him, and I'm like, there must be something wrong. I should not be beating him because he's got years of experience.
Right.
A month went by, and he could no longer beat me. And it was
Oh,
like he
man.
would get one win one day, and they would be like, "Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm out." And I'm like, "You like?" I'm like, "Bro, why do you do that, bro?" Like, "Nah, I beat you. That's it, bro." I'm like, "Bro, but I've like, what is one win to like the millionth time that I've beat you?" And
But
I'm
it's
not
like,
popping up like that. Like, doesn't matter. Didn't you just lose right now? And I'm like, I just wanted to smack him. I'm like, this son of a gun, man. Like, come on, bro. Like,
he was
how you
so
do me like
soft.
this? I was so salty. It's like that one win. Oh my god, I was like sitting on a needle, dude. My goodness, I'm like, yo, this got the nerve on this guy, man. I just can't. But eventually, the age of the internet was on its way, on its way in, and we started doing, going to internet cafes. And I remember that 30 minutes used to feel like an eternity. I'm like, oh my God, 30 minutes? Damn, that's life. And I would just go and get all the moves and whatnot, because we didn't know how to do the Shungo Kutsatsu. That's Akuma's Raging Demon. So I remember that my friend was one day like playing against me. He was just mashing it. It was just like, and all of a sudden he just got the thing. Like, and I'm like, yo, what the hell is that? And then when he got me, the lights went out. I was like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was just losing it. I'm like, bro, what just happened? I'm like, yo, you gotta tell me, how do you do that? How do you do it? He's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I just wanted to punch him. I'm like, you do like the most godlike stuff, but you never know. How can you live with that?
How can you live with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a serious
Yeah.
move. Like, if you ever, especially back in the days when like Akuma was first accessible as a player, I think about the Alpha series basically, and just to land that move was a big deal. And
Yeah.
I think for most players, unless you were like a highly skilled player, just to see the move activated was kind of intimidating. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? If you're doing it raw and neutral, it's just a jump, right? It's a jump over, it's a grab. Like no one,
it doesn't even have invisibility.
yeah,
You can just jab him.
So,
You can just jab.
and some versions, I know there's some versions where it's like there is like weird hitboxes and like I know I told this story before in one of my older podcasts. But I specifically remember having Street Fighter Alpha,
Hmm.
Alpha 1 for the PS1. And I remember, like, I used to enjoy playing the CPU. And, like, you get good and you play the CPU on the hardest level, level 8, like, put all the stars up or whatever. And I distinctly remember, like, I wanted to have a run on level 8 where I beat the CPU, don't lose a round, and, like, fight Akuma, right? Because that's what you want to
Yeah.
do, right? So I do it, and I'm using Ken, and I get there, I get to Akuma, and it's like we go back and forth. I win the first round, he wins the second round, and then it comes down to the third round. The third round is like so close, and like he jumped in with like the double. He's the Shinoku, right? So he has like the 2 fireballs in the air and stuff when he jumps.
Oh
So
yeah.
like, so he jumps in and like I block it, and then I have like 4 meter. I do level 3 show you rep guy, and I'm gonna chip him out, right? And
Yeah.
the first 2 red bars come out, right? And like the last set is supposed to chip him out and kill him, right? So as I'm coming down from the second one, mid block stream, Raging Demon. I lost my mind. I'm very careful about my gaming and my equipment. I took my controller and threw it and yanked the whole system. And remember, these are delicate systems with the discs inside, and you know,
Yeah.
and not a Nintendo with a cartridge. This is like you can't be throwing them out. I was pissed. I was pissed. So yeah, I'll never live that story down as long as I live. It's just bananas. But yeah, like I totally understand like the whole like again Akuma and the vibe, and you start at Alpha 3, so you're beating this guy, and those skills, I guess you so now you can call it you're a fighting game player. You understand the
Yeah.
fundamentals of at least executing moves. Like you can pick up any fighting game and start messing around without even looking at how the system works, right? Because that's what we do, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, did you go into Marvel 3, or did you have any experience maybe playing Marvel 2 or Marvel? You mentioned Marvel 2 and 1, I think briefly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned Marvel too. So I actually went like through the ladder of the Versus series because I had Street Fighter Alpha 3. You know, I quote unquote mastered the game beyond just a casual level player. Because most of the guys who would just pick up the game would say that they know how to play. It was just like
Mhm.
mashing because for some reason this is like deeply ingrained into the human core.
Yeah.
Is this is the first instincts like and
So
I'm like
it's kind of like a thing. It's kind of like, and I know you've gone through this. I think every person that's played fighting games, especially in a competitive, highly competitive situation, has gone through the thing where you probably, hey, I heard you play fighting games. I'm really good. I'll beat you, right? And then like you meet the person or whatever you play, and you can tell as a fighting game player, you can tell within the first 5-10 seconds of someone playing whether they're good or not.
yeah.
Unless they're sandbagging the hell out of you, you can
Hmm.
tell right away. Like I've
You can
done it.
tell.
I've had like I've done clubs. I work for the DOE in the city. All right, that's my secret job. And
Nice.
um, I work with students, and I remember I actually met some students back in the day who later on
Hmm.
joined the original KPB because I crashed their gaming club, right? And they're playing Kaka versus SNK 2, right? And they had that going on.
Yeah.
I come in and I'm like looking around. And I'm like, okay, these guys are playing fighting games. I need to go mess with them, right? So I'm watching them, and like I already see that they can do like Hadouken. They don't really know anything. They're not doing anything, right? So I
Yeah.
like come in and I'm like, yo, you mind if I try it? And I'm like, they're like, yeah, sure. They all come. They're gonna beat me. Like, yeah, come. And like I'm like, oh, what is this? Like I've seen like some of these characters. This Street Fighter. I'm totally being stupid, right? And they go, no, this guy called SNK too, and it's like blah blah blah. And then like, and I'm like, oh, is that guy from like Fatal Fury? I think it is. And like I'm totally playing dumb, right? And I think I end up picking. I end up picking Terry. So Terry, I was really, even though we learned that they're bad. Like I was heavy into SNK characters, so I like a Terry Benjamin. And like, let me try this guy. I act like I didn't know who this was or whatever, right? And I remember like from that point, just OCVing everyone with Terry, and like doing combos that they've never seen before, and they're all like they're stuck and they're like losing their minds and they're like, you know how to play, you know. And so I know you get that situation where you come to a situation and you can tell in 5 seconds whether someone's actually good or not.
Oh yeah. That's the thing that I saw a lot. And, but this is something that I also realized, against other guys who were at a much higher level than me. Because eventually, I got to play other games. Like X-Men vs. Street Fighter was the first Versus series game that I played. And I didn't like it. And the reason why I didn't like it was because it felt slow. But of course, we're playing on the sluggish ass PS1, number one. Number two, they had different turbos, which means that the game goes a lot faster than it should have. And then I can actually keep up to. So that's one thing. But the most interesting thing about it is that I didn't like some of the characters' dashes, especially Ryu, because Ryu felt like he was just doing a really awkward dash because it looks like a little hop.
Did that float, like that slide float? And it was like, I hated the way they dash in that game. Like,
well, he got the better dash in Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter because that's when he goes like, huh? But in this, like in X-Men versus Street Fighter, he goes like, and I'm like, yeah. Bro, what the hell is this? Like, why the hell does it go like this? And it doesn't make any sense how he's, just jumping from one place to another.
Oh, okay. Oh, my God. Okay.
But yeah, so again, that was the thing. I found it weird. But for the most part, I really liked the fact that Ryu now could just throw a long ass Hadouken that would just go full screen. I'm like, bro, like what is this? And then when I got into supers, and then I started liking the game a lot more. And going backtracking a little bit to the portion where we were talking about how you would know if someone knows how to play or not. I remember that like years later, I went to a video game club, right? And there were like these two guys playing the same game, but in the Sega Saturn. And we all know that that's actually the true version of the game. That's a perfect arcade port to the Sega Saturn.
They had the ROM card, right? It was a ROM card. You needed the ROM card for the memory.
I think you needed like the disc, and you needed the cartridge for that one. But it was just ridiculous. Like the game played so smooth, and there were things that I've never seen before. It also had a tag system. I'm like, this game has a tag system.
Yeah, oh my God. I forgot that the home port didn't have the tag system. I forgot all about
that. My God. I don't understand why. The Sony ports were always super shitty. I understand, that they had, because even with all the stuff that they had to cut out frames of animation, therefore looking choppier. The sound didn't like that much. The sound was actually fine. For the most part. The later Versus series games actually lacked in the sound department there. Like Marvel 1 sounding a lot worse in PS1. But I see these guys just battling it out. And, the days after that I come again, it's just these two same guys playing, and they're just doing infinites with each other. I'm like, how is this fun? I'm like, bro, you just get one hit and that's it, you win? You just got to do the combo and that's it. Like what's the skill at?
Little did you know.
Little did I know. And then it turned out everybody had a damn infinite in the game. And I played him. And my only problem was that I couldn't play because I hate the D-pad on the Saturn.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my God.
So I hate the D-pad on the Saturn. And, I couldn't even do a Hadouken. I couldn't move properly. Jesus Christ. It was just a nightmare. So what I ended up doing was I challenged them to play it on the PS1. I said, I don't play this game that much. The game I play is Marvel 1, and I was trash you in that game. You better believe that I'm gonna destroy you. He said, Marvel 1? Nah, man. I'll destroy you. And I'm like, okay, let's play then. And he said, okay, let's rent out a PS2 and let's play. And my dude picked Red Venom. And I found out that one moment that he had an infinite. However, it wasn't as easy to do on PS1. But he had that. But I realized that I wasn't actually that good. He knew the infinites because you get a lot of people like that. You get people who are, ridiculous when it comes to executing infinites and whatnot. But again, there are fundamentals. Mm-hmm. If you can catch someone, you can't do an infinite.
Right.
If you don't get your, if you don't get that infinite going, you can't beat someone. If that's the only way you mostly win, then good luck playing neutral.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I beat him there. I beat him, and he was super mad. I'm like, I don't like these controllers. Let's go and play at home, cause I'm gonna beat you up over there, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, let me know where you leave.
Okay.
And then I went to his house, and I beat his ass over there. And he was so tight. But before that, I had my friend Carlos play, and I'm like, Carlos, just beat him up for me, bro. I already did the job. Just, you already know what to do. Just beat him up. And little did I know, Carlos just got beat up like he didn't know how to play. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? You look like a toddler holding a controller right now. Oh no, but this and that. And I'm like, bro, you're just complaining, man. Like, come on, Carlos. Like, you should know better than this. You taught me this. You're much better than this guy. This guy only knows infinites and whatnot. But the guy was good. But Carlos was lacking in fundamentals, and he also was really stubborn in his ways. Like he didn't want to learn. He didn't want to learn moves the way they were. Like he was doing half circles rather than doing quarter circles. And I'm like, bro, you're doing it wrong. You taught me this way, and I realized it was shorter than that. So do this. No, I'm more comfortable doing it like this. And I'm like,
Too much time spent. That's added frames.
That is true. That is true. And eventually I move on, to Marvel Superheroes, Street Fighter, and then Marvel 1. And one thing I didn't like about the Versus series was that everything was simplified. One quarter circle, one motion, that's it. Super. Same thing for and I'm like, man, this junk is too easy. Like, why couldn't they do it like Street Fighter 3? It was like bah, bah, and then boom. No double motions, and I hated it. But then something happened. I played it so much that I was actually now having a little trouble getting used to the double motion in Street Fighter 3. And then it balanced it out. I balanced it out, and I could switch back and forth. But I just appreciated what they what they wear. I just appreciated what the game wear, rather than just comparing the two, because these are two different games.
Let me ask you. I had the pleasure of speaking with Cable River, and he tells me we go a lot into his upbringing in Chile and the scene there. Now I know you don't live in DR, you haven't been there. But what do you think about the progression of like just esports in the Dominican Republic and Latin communities? Opposed to when you were first, playing fighting games in general. I'm like, because I mean, in his situation, he mentions that because where he's from, he doesn't get opportunities. There's nothing about his skill, right? He's a skilled player, and anything that he put his mind to, We also talked about, while most of the world knows him from Marvel, we talked about how good he was in King of Fighters as well. That being said, do you think throughout your fighting career as a Marvel player, you would have had the same access if you were still in DR, or do you think that it's better now in DR for up and coming players to become like professional fighting players?
It's better now than it has ever been, especially after Mena put
right.
After he did such a tremendous eye-opening. I don't know if he made a tremendous eye-opening achievement, right? Yeah,
he won.
He accomplished something. Yeah, exactly. He accomplished something colossal. Like, this is colossal. Like, this dude just came here. Of course, it's not like he just came. Oh yeah, from out of nowhere, and then he just won. He's been he'd been grinding the game, and I've seen him at next level, right? Before winning Capcom Cup and whatnot. But what he accomplished definitely just made everything skyrocket, because the ignorance in the DR from a lot of people who are older school, for a lot of people who are even from the current generation, is way too too alive, I would say. It's like, oh, you're playing games, my dude, and you're not gonna get anywhere with it. Like, even nowadays, so you get people who are either my age or a little younger, and and they keep that ridiculous mentality alive. But that's because their parents. A lot of things, ignorance is passed on generation, of generation to generation by parents or neighbors and whatnot. But for the most part, back then, I wouldn't have been able to get to know or to get to be who I am in the Dominican Republic because one, I lacked the resources. I didn't
Mm.
know anything about the community in the Dominican Republic. Yes, I knew this one place where there were these guys, and these guys had access to internet. We didn't even have cable at home. We had no internet. We had nothing, literally nothing. We barely had a radio to just tune into the radio stations to listen to music, and that was because that was me being poor. But people who were a lot more, um, a lot better economically established, right? They could actually find the places where these tournaments were taking place, and that was
Mm.
more on my end, in my economic status, I would say.
Right.
But other than that, back then, I don't think I would have been able to, get to where I am today because of those limitations, those personal limitations, and also the lack of accessibility to the stuff that we have here.
Right.
Because even like you can even go to a library and just access the internet and whatnot. And the internet is actually like very decent at libraries. Over there, not
Hmm.
so much. Not so much back then. Now you have
Right.
a lot more, of course.
Now, yeah, now things have
Um,
happened, and
yeah.
things have evolved where they see the need and they've began to build the infrastructure that's important for those communities.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. And we already had like internet cafes back then. That's when I found out about Facebook and whatnot. And at that time, like yeah, the internet was already well and alive, and you could find almost anything back then. So as years went by, I noticed that a lot of things that I didn't know I could actually find out, but I needed to spend money on that. And I didn't have internet up until I came to the US in like 2009. And I think no, it was in 2010.
Okay.
So like after Mana did what he did, like that, he just lit up the fire because there's a lot of talent in the Dominican Republic and
Yes.
all aspects of the spectrum, regardless of the
Yeah.
field.
Hmm.
A
A
lot
lot
of
of talent.
talent. It just sucks. The go like all governments have been pretty trash. Like they don't care about the people. They just care about what makes their pockets better and bigger.
Exactly. That's all governments for
And
you.
yeah, but it's like when it comes to like being really shitty, like this is the epitome of that. There are much worse, of course, but the point here is, damn man, so much talent, so many resources. Why the hell don't you push, the youth? Why don't you teach them about all these resources that they can use to
Right.
better their lives? They don't have to go to college. They can learn programming. They can learn to be useful for many areas in society. But that's not a thing that is pushed early on by the government. Look, yeah, there are some
Right.
resources, but it's like,
I feel like we're as a community we're taught to become employees of a business rather than to
yeah,
become dreamers and innovators. And
hmm
it's still a thing. Like your
it's the other
basic
thing.
go to college to get a good job in the hopes of getting a good job, right? You're not taught to take
Yeah,
what you know and like curate something for yourself, and
hmm
that's just a pipeline process that still happens to this very day. And I hope that this current generation and future generations start to break from that, and they are. They start. We have more entrepreneurs now. More people creating something out of nothing, and I think that's important. Just to change the status quo and really showcase the creativity that people have rather than to just dedicate your life to a corporation or organization or business and then say,
yeah,
here, thank you for your 25 years of your life. You know, you can
hmm
have this nice watch. There's more to life than that for sure. I
yeah,
have to
for sure.
say, uh, I've had the honor and the pleasure to do a stint with Capcom and help produce a Capcom Pro Tour event in DR
Oh
back in
yeah, I
2019.
saw that.
And
That
yeah, the
was
game
that
over.
was dope.
And
That was super
it
dope.
was. I've been to DR before. I love DR. I've gone to DR a bunch, especially in the last 5 6 years. But to actually go and meet some of the community was
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite highlights of being a part of this community. and just meeting the staff at Game Over and those guys. They were very welcoming. Dude, I went to DR and they gave me a bottle of Brugal, like like special edition. Not not I've because I've gone to DR so much. I literally have 5-6 bottles of Brugal, different types that are still sitting on my shelf. I don't drink. I don't drink a lot at home, and just when I host. But they gave me another bottle, and it was just so awesome. I love those guys. But besides that, like the community was very awesome. Like I remember there was like a fan, a lady. She was there. She was just so happy to get like a autograph from Knuckle Doo. It made her life, and they're just like us. Like just because they're in another country and they speak another language, they're not any different. And they're highly competitive. They're great players. They're the same passion, if not more of a passion, for their games. And so it was just a really fun and yet humbling experience to go there, produce the show, and just have a good time. Hang out with DRA, all those guys out there. They're very awesome to me. Shouts out to those guys, and I love it. Like the community. It was one of the few things I really love about the community. Like no matter how far the distance, we're really family, and we share the same love and passion. And DR is another example of like great players in a great community. I feel from what I see.
That is definitely true.
Let's go to competitive. Let's go into the Punisher persona and how do we get that? Let's start. Yeah, let's start. What's the catalyst that says, you know what, I can do this competitively. Let's see how far I go. When does that take place?
Well, I always dreamed of because again, I'm a sucker for Ryu. I love the Ryu attitude of like I need to get stronger. I want a bigger challenge, and I wanted to fight people who were much better than me because I was really tired of just playing against casual people, and that was that was what I was mostly surrounded by. And I remember trying to teach these people, right? Mostly close friend of mine or just their friends, friends of friends, and they didn't want to learn. They were like, "Oh no, man!" It's like when you hit me with the thing, you don't let me do anything. Like I can't even wake up properly. You hit me right off. You put me on the ground and then you just pick me up again. And I'm like, dude, all you have to do is this. Like, no. But then you would, and then when they would do it, I would hit them with something that would break that. And I'm like, yeah, you need to adapt. You need to understand that that's not a silver bullet. So that's like the beginning of it. And then I always dreamed of being able to. I was like, damn, wouldn't it be cool if there were like tournaments where people would go, just like when people go and play baseball and stuff like that. It'd be really cool to have a community who does that. And I remember again finding out about this guys at this this video game club, and I was like, that's interesting. I would like to find more guys like that. And then things wore off, and then I came to the U.S. And then one of the first things that I did was I went into Kylera because we had MAME. I found out about MAME, and I found out you could play games online. And then I found out you could play retro games online, like the 2D fighting games. And I'm like, so you're telling me that I can play Marvel 1 online against someone else across the world?
You mean to tell me that you can?
Yeah, I'm like, yo, sign me in. And then I did my research. I found out, and I started playing. I learned about the demise of lag. I'm like, oh my god, why is it lagging? Like, why is this happening? This syncing and whatnot. But there, it was where it was cemented. My tag back then used to be the Punisher because you needed an alias, right? It was like, I'm gonna call myself the Punisher, and I stick that there. And I was not as good as the people playing there because these are people who have been playing for years and they know about all the cheap stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my god! I was getting so tilted because I knew I could beat them, but they had the cheap stuff, so I had to get past that to beat them.
Right.
So I need to learn how that worked, and I didn't learn it. That's always been one of my downfalls. I learned the cheap stuff. So I like that. And I'm like, damn, it would be cool if I could play against people like this offline. Cool. So I got a little known in the community, a tiny bit. So I became one of the regulars. And we used to have like 4v4. No, it was not 4v4. It was 2v2 in Marble 1. I'm like, wow, this is so cool that you can just bring in your friend and then he can just continue the thing. But yeah, so after that, Marble 3 happens. And then I start just binge watching all of these YouTube videos. I see Ray and all these guys and
Marvel
the Big Two.
Comics.
Oh my God. Capcom presents Marvel Comics. I would never forget that. I would never forget that. And I got Marvel 3. And
one thing you come to. I'm sorry. I said you come to New York from New York, correct?
No, I go to Philly. I spent 5 months in Philadelphia. Yeah, and I was not living with my mother. We were living with an aunt-in-law. No, an uncle-in-law. I think that's what it is. It was he was my aunt's husband. So we were living there for 5 months. Those months were a nightmare. I wish that had never happened. But 5 months later, we got to New York because my mom finally got an apartment. And time went by. I got busy trying to get into college. That also was a struggle because some of the papers I sent, they said I didn't send. They had them, but they didn't realize they did. It was a mess. And then years later, I go back to researching Marvel. And then when I research, I see that there are tournaments and whatnot. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And I was binge watching that. And one day I saw a comment talking about tournaments being organized. I decided to go, and it was the level grinding guys who organized that. And I remember being like, that looks like it's kind of close to where I live. Well, let me see. And I eventually had to take like a taxi there. And I went there, and that was my first tournament ever. The experience was amazing. And I got second place. That was like my first tournament ever, and I got second place with a freaking
Marvel 3.
That was Marvel 3, yeah. And this was me playing with a 360 pad, and I am a PS3 pad user. That was a nightmare. And I had a converter as well. That's where the painful converter days started, because I realized that the switch had just happened to from PS3 to 360.
Right.
And then that's when I named
remember
myself.
the catalyst for that. I remember the tournament as to why we switched, why the community switched from PS3 to. But that's another story.
Is that the Chris G stuff?
Yeah. So yeah, I was there. I was there when he blew up. I was sitting right behind him, and he said, I to be honest, I actually gave him the benefit of the doubt in what he was saying. It wasn't. I didn't feel like he was crying. I felt that he's always been a great player. Shout out to Chris G.
Yeah.
He had a legitimate gripe that he's using. He perfected a tech that started from Dominion with Morgan. Right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And when at the time the strategy and the set play was so frame perfect and precise, you had to have a level of execution to pull it off. So there wasn't people, even though people knew that shell was awesome, they wasn't running to it and using it because it was hard to execute. So he, of all people, can actually legitimately say that there was an issue with the frames if he was having issues executing when he did it fine every other time. And when that's what that. I won't spend too much more time on that. But it was a legit gripe. But go on. So we switch over. You were a PS3 player. You had to play on the Xbox 360 pad, which I think are horrible for fighting games. But
yeah, they're definitely horrible. Like the buttons, it's just a D-pad. Like I just couldn't get past the D-pad because I'm a D-pad player, and I cannot play on the analog when it comes to fighting games. So I had to do that switch on the fly. First time, here you go. And the triggers were actually also different too. So I was like, damn, I have to do that, man. This is my first tournament. And then, I was beating a lot of people. I was still struggling with the controller. But these were people.
Was there any names that you beat? Or any names in that tournament? Any known players? Or who would you end up losing to? Like, who was in that tournament? I have to know.
in that tournament, there was only one guy that I had been friends with for the longest time. Besides, Stetson, it
Mhm.
was it was Angel Bias, aka
Oh,
Angel
okay.
Bags.
Angel Bag,
He
yes.
was the guy I put into losers, and he was super tight. He was so pissed off. He was determined to take me out. I put him
Oh
in
yeah.
losers. I beat everybody up to grand finals, and he comes back from the grave like the Grim Reaper just to rip the first place out of my hands. And he just plays the most disrespectful way possible. And he was playing
Oh
the
man.
same cheap ass team he's been playing. And he beats me. But it was mostly one, I made a lot of mistakes approaching him, especially against Wesker, because Wesker level 3 X Factor, even though it's not the greatest, is ridiculous too when it comes to his normals, how fast he is, and the damage output. Of course, level 3 X Factor is great for most characters. But
Right.
my goodness, so many happy boo boos. It was not even it was not even funny. And no, he just takes it. He talks on smack, and I'm like, I hate this guy. I'm like, I hate this guy so much. I want to beat him so bad. Like, this is not gonna happen again ever.
Oh,
And
okay.
then I meet Reed, who
Reed.
I
Oh
to
my
this
God.
day, who
Yo,
I to this
Reed.
day,
I ran into Reed last, was it, a while ago. I ran into him in co-op. He lives in co-op. And I always call him my long lost brother. We have the same last name. Like he's David
yeah, I
Reed.
noticed that too.
I'm Rodney Reed. So when I first
Yeah.
met him, I'm like, are we related? Because I remember actually going to a tournament to play Street Fighter,
Hmm.
and they thought I was Reed, and they were scared. Like, oh my God, Reed's coming. And I'm like, no, I'm not Reed. I know who he was at the time. But and then I met him. He was a mall player. Yes, I remember Reed, and Reed was such a cool guy. Like he's still an
Yeah.
awesome guy. Right? Yeah.
Super
So
awesome guy. I meet this guy. He obliterates me with Beautiful Joe and his Dormammu
yes,
team. And
yes.
I'm like, what do I do against this crap, man? Like I can't do anything. Iron Fist is just unplayable right off the bat.
Mhm.
Like, what's the approach? And after he beats me, he goes up to me. He's like, "Yo, listen, man, pretty godlike. You need to like after. I think that was after the tournament was done. It was he was talking to me. He was like, "You're pretty godlike, dude. Like, you need to come to the House of Crack." And I was like, "To the House of what?" I don't think so, dude. No, man. Listen. See, you don't understand. It's not what it sounds like. It's not what it sounds like. I'm like, okay, so explain. And he was like, okay, so the House of Crack is this place run by this guy, his house. We do tournaments and whatnot. You have there are a lot of strong players over there, and I'm pretty sure you have great potential. You're a pretty great player because to be playing this team and to be getting this far into the tournament, it's not an easy task. I don't see anybody doing
Right.
this. You need to go to the House of Crack. So I met Reed there. Reed was the one beating me consistently,
Mhm.
and after that, it was Reed versus Angel, right? And it was funny because Angel at the time was using his friend's alias, right? He was calling himself Galvez.
Mhm.
Angel was such a funny guy. So he was like, yeah, Galvez Sanchez. He was using his friend's name. So so when no when I got to the house, then I met Ray Ray and many of the other guys. I remember that first day I got there. I was in training mode practicing my combos, and Bum was like, "Hey, what do you play?" And he came over and he looked at me. I'm like, "Wait, you play that? I'm putting you on stream. I'm putting you on stream first match." Because I was playing like Chong Li, Iron Fist Rocket.
Yeah.
And he was just like, no, you have to go on stream. And I didn't understand why, because I just got there. Like he doesn't know me. And he was
Right.
just so excited. I'm like, he was so excited. I was just flabbergasted. I'm like, why is he that excited? And then I was just beating the hell out of everybody I was playing. Prodigy was one of the first people I beat. And I beat him so fast because I played an Iron Fist, Raccoon, Hawkeye. I beat him so fast. He was like, man, what the like, who is this
No,
guy? Yo,
I
that, that was
love
2-1,
that
right?
team, man.
Oh,
I love that team. I know eventually you end up dropping Iron Fist, but
Yeah,
Always watching your Iron Fist was like, it was so hype. So I wasn't. I mean, for me as someone that runs a team that just loves fighting games in general, even though my heart's
yeah,
KOF mostly, um, I have my hand a little bit in everything. I'm not all in on any one game really, right? And
hmm
so I didn't hear about you until Sean, of course, Sean Aquino,
yeah.
told me about
Of
you a
course.
while back. We're talking about you, and Sean was like the big butterfly of the local Marvel community, and like
Yeah.
when I say local, not just New York City, I'm talking about the whole region. Like he goes to
hmm
big events, and like Philly gives him love, kind of thing. And he's just a player. Like he didn't win anything crazy, but it's just like this kind of guy he is. He's very sociable, very cool dude.
Oh
And
yeah, 100%.
I remember he would tell me so much about you. Like, I'm like, I gotta see you play. And I remember the first time I actually saw you play was the first DTN.
Oh
That's
yes, that was
yeah,
my breakout first major ever.
yes, yes. And like I remember, like Sean was like, "Yo, he's gonna win this whole freaking thing." Like what, blah, blah. And Sean was already hyped because Sean had gotten the top 8. Um, I think he beat Black White. Is that what his name was? The mall player. He was just like he beat someone he shouldn't have beaten. He was a super hype. So he was in top 8. He was actually in top 8. And then I just remember like your match with Jay Rosa and like
Oh my god.
just like how everyone just stopped what they were doing, like and I was totally misbehaving like that whole weekend. I was at my worst. Like yeah, I was there as a volunteer to help out. Like that was my thing. Initially, it was like
hmm
us like, as KB, we would all go like all 47 of us would go and like outfit a whole major with like volunteers and like they used to love us for that. It's like, oh my god, we have our staff like KPBC, you know.
Yeah.
And
hmm
I remember like I was just I was just being outside of doing what I had to do and being professional. Away from that, I was being bad. I was making fun of other players I didn't like and other people at the time.
hmm
Steve would tell you what I was doing, off camera what I was doing. But I remember like watching you that Sunday and like how like time stopped because everyone was just watching you in that match. And I was like, yo, this guy is amazing. Like this Iron Fist is phenomenal. And everyone's losing it. Like, tell me how you felt in that situation that weekend.
Man, that weekend was such a huge, I would say, a colossal roller coaster, because I was running with a Chronos converter, and there were many rumors that it caused lag. And for the most part, the
Mm.
people I played, they said it was fine. There were some people who said that they felt like their inputs were dropping, but it's like whenever they landed a combo on me, yeah, I would just die. I'm like, okay. I'm like, looks like it's working fine. And then I got to J Rosa. I beat Dominion that weekend.
Mhm.
And during my losers run, and it was I made top 8 from losers, because first round of losers, I had to go to the bathroom, and I spent like near like 35 minutes because it was bad.
Oh man. Oh man.
And it was like
That
the guy
nerves?
was
That was
like,
nerves?
no, it must have been
Oh,
the
bad food.
fast food I got.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been like food poisoning,
Oh,
because
I'm
it was
sorry to hear that.
really bad. And
Yeah.
yeah, I had been waiting for hours, and my match wasn't starting until like half the day was gone. So I was there from like really early on. So we went to get food, and yeah, when it was almost my turn to play, my stomach was just exploding, and I'm like, oh no, I gotta go. I'm like, yo, Scamby, please, bro, just let this guy know. Tell him not to disqualify me, to wait a little bit. The guy waited for like 35 minutes, and I was surprised. And then Scamby said, "Yo, bro, Gil," and I'm like, "Yo, Scamby, I'm almost done, bro." But it's like, wow, I can't do this. Gil, the guy's gonna DQ you, bro. I'm gonna go tell him one more time. And then Scamby just came like 5 minutes later. Yo, Gil, I'm sorry, bro. He just DQ'd you. You're the losers now. And I'm like,
Oh my god.
I'm like,
That
it's all
sucks.
right. I still have a chance. I still have a chance. I think I can do a little something. So let's just try to do my best, whatever little I have.
Mm.
And I did just that. I played it out. I was just super bummed out. So the guy felt bad. He was like, "I'm sorry, dude, but I had to do it, man. It took too long. I gave it wait, plenty of chances." and it just didn't happen. I just wish you the best. There's nothing I can do. So I played it out. I beat Armenian. I made top A. Everybody was a lot more excited than I was because I didn't understand the value of top A. And this was a thing that I didn't understand that much until years later because a lot of times your judgment of how valuable something is clouded by your skill. Your skill, that's one thing, and also by your ignorance as well.
Right.
The skill can also make you very ignorant and unaware of the things that the surround how hard it is to get to a certain point. So I made top 8, first tournament ever, and there were people who have been going to tournaments for years and they could have never made it out of pools. And I'm making top 8 from losers, from a DQ. And then Jay Rosa starts complaining about the inputs that they're dropping, blah blah blah. But again, he's doing his whole fist pattern just fine. And then he makes me play on a PS2 pad. And the problem about the PS2 pad is that the quote unquote triggers, which are just bumpers, they have a problem where you have to. The dead zone is, I think, it's a little too long.
Yeah.
Too high, I would say. Like you have to go way too deep.
It's not the same reaction. It's not the same reaction.
Yeah. And that was messing me up. I couldn't dash properly. So I ended up playing with that converter that he had. His converter was fine. It was great, to be honest. The controller was great for the most part, but it was just the trigger. So I couldn't just wave dash properly. And I was struggling. But I was still able to pull through, So let me just say the last portion about, what happened, how J. Rosa lost. So for some reason, Iron Fist touches Morrigan, and she dies. Now I know I have a chance because he's probably going to try to escape with Doom. And if I touch Strider's not going to get to play because Iron Fist just decimates health.
Strider's a piece of paper in that game.
Exactly. And yeah, like Iron Fist hits like a truck, and now you have someone who's glass cannon. So that was like the best combination ever. So we played it out. I killed Doom after killing Morrigan. And it is Strider versus Iron Fist, no X Factor. There's an honest game. He gets orbs, I survive, his X Factor just run out. And now we got to play the game. Now he has to play a neutral game, and I'm really confident on the ground. I'm like, I don't care how fast Strider is, he's not messing with me. And then I hit him, and rather than doing level 3 right away, because I was very nervous, I was just shaking. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, please don't drop this combo. Please, things work out. I'm like thinking about so many variables at the same time. And when I finally hit him, I try to do level 1. I think it was. No, I get a combo. He goes into the corner, and I go for something that just whiffs. And I'm like, why the hell did this whiff? And it was that I tried to dash, and that I didn't get the dash on time because of the trigger. And then he falls out. He rolls forward out of the corner. I chase him. And then the game is stolen once again from me because I get an earth throw. And Iron Fist has this glitch where if you press a button as he's coming out of the throw animation and that state, the game counts him as he gets frozen into that state. So whatever button he presses, it doesn't matter if he's really close to the ground or touching it. He remains floating. So he's going to throw an air normal. And that's exactly what happened. You can see Iron Fist stuck in the air, just doing, whoa. Oh, I'm sorry about that if it was too loud. So he was going like this. And J. Rosa escapes that. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I tried to delay that attack because I was aware of that the whole time, but it still came out. So when I see that, I'm like, he's going to roll forward. And he did roll forward. I'm sorry. He's going to roll back. And he did roll back. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do Fist of Fury. And the super is going to hit Meaty. He's going to chip him out. Rodney. I got freaking Spyro of the Dragon by mistake. And Iron Fist goes like, Spyro of the Dragon. Oh. And J. Rosa is just standing there, not blocking. And all of a sudden, he just decides to dash. It was the last frame of the super. And this guy just ran into the flame. Whoa! And the whole crowd roars and goes crazy. Everybody's just jumping out of their seats and laughing out loud. Everybody's just bending forward because they can't take it. And it was funny because even if he got on the combo, Iron Fist wouldn't have died. We would still have to reset neutral again. But oh my God, that moment was just iconic. It got clipped. He went viral. Oh my God.
Yo, you know what's funny is like you hear these stories, right? And well, now I hear your side of the story, right? And
yeah,
we don't know what's going through your head. We just see what we see, right? right? And so it's just so amazing, right? And that you're caught up, and you're literally dealing with like 2 to 3 scrambles at that point, right? Especially with the glitch not being in your favor. And it's like that game has always been stressful to me. It's basically just for the scramble, and not even as a player, like just to watch it. I'm like, I've never been more like, I'm at events like I stand up and I cringe, because like I see there's like a photo of me, I think, reacting to like, I know it was Marvel. When I saw the photo of me, I know I was watching Marvel for sure. I actually think it was the Coach C versus Flux exhibition
Oh my
at
god.
ECT. And like, because that's what that game does to you, right? Like,
Yeah.
say what you want to say about the game, like it or don't like it. Like, it's definitely one of the hypest games that I've ever watched to this day.
Yeah, that is true.
There's nothing as hype as Marvel. Like, I love King of Fighters. I'm a King of Fighters guy. I love all fighting games. But Marvel, to me, is one of the most hypest games. And just on that merit, I can watch it. Like, I can, like, I go to events and, like, oh, this game's top 8. I'm going to walk away, and go get a drink or something. But Marvel top 8, come on, we got to watch it, because you never know what's going to happen. And the scramble is so exciting to watch.
Yeah, that is, that's actually a huge thing, and I would get a lot of anxiety from playing, in tournaments. That would be shaking, and even though it got better, I still get shaky, even though it doesn't look like it, because I'm pretty good at try to not show it that much. But it's like I get super shook when I play, and that triples when I'm playing online. If I play like online on Parsec, and there's a little lag, my heart starts racing, and then I get super angry, and I'm like, oh my god, I shouldn't be getting this mad. But I just hate being in the situation where I cannot control what's happening. And to the spectators, it's just me getting salty, but it's just the difference. And if you don't own a server, you're pretty much toast, because you can't adapt. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna adapt. No, you can't, because it's fluctuating. Right. Now you get this many frames. Now the timing changed randomly, and then you just dropped your combo. That Marvel is very unforgiving.
Very unforgiving.
Super, super unforgiving, and it's a fun game. I hold very dearly to my heart. I love it. I just love it too much.
In the thought of unforgiving, it had to have been unforgiving enough for you to change your composition. So, what makes you settle on like your final team composition that you used in tournament play? Like, I think you then go to Rocket. You go to Rocket. Is it Rocket MODOK? Tell me, I forget your team composition.
My final team composition ended up being Hawkeye, MODOK, Rocket, and then each I added more characters, like Beautiful Joe. Beautiful Joe was a character that I always wanted to play. And then I ran into Reed, and Reed taught me everything he could. He would come here and sit with me, and we would play, and we would discuss different things. I would ask him questions. I would ask him to go over my some videos, because he was super busy with school, so I didn't want to bother him that much. I was just grinding, he's going over his amazingly done Beautiful Joe tutorial, which I still think is the best to date. Like, if I were to do something better than that, Reed had to be involved, or it was just me just copying whatever he did and just improving upon the things that maybe might be lacking. But it's just like, the guy is a damn brainiac when it comes to, the amount of effort and knowledge he put into that video. Like, I just kept on watching that religiously. But yeah, what pushed me to that team was basically, the limitations of playing my team. A lot of times when I was getting touched, I was just dying. So there's no second chances. The less chances you get to play, the more likely it is that you are going to lose. And I wanted that. So I was like, okay.
Can you explain to people that may not be ultimately familiar with Marvel and those type of games?
Right.
What does it mean to have a chance to play?
Okay. So in Marvel 3, a lot of people confuse, one-touch kills. Marvel 3 is not a one-touch kill game. And the reason why I say this is because one-touch kill games are the games where you get touched once and you died and for the most part, they didn't spend any resources. You just died.
Right.
You got a combo, and the combo never ended, and boom, you're done. In Marvel 3, you have to spend a lot of resources, and you have to have the right team composition. A lot of times, you have to get a specific hit to get there.
Right.
And it's mostly a one-touch hit game if your character has very low health. And even then, it can also be really hard because if you got it from a throw, then the scaling is gonna be through the roof.
Right.
In Marvel 3, there are characters who can touch you and just loop you to death with very little resources, aka zero. He touches you and you get zero chances of playing if they don't drop the combo. Because lightning loops do not scale. And they don't apply it to something called the hit stun deterioration. The more hit stun a combo has, the more likely it is your character is going to flip out of that combo to prevent infinites.
Right.
Well, zero, for as long as he has meter, he can keep that going. And the damage output on that is just absurd, to put it lightly. It's just absurd. Like, you just die, and he always builds the second bar. Always.
Right.
It's just
Always,
ridiculous. And if you have the right composition, you might not get a chance to play. Because, the problem about Marvel is that you, for the most part, is you get a hit, you optimize it to the best of your capabilities to kill or to vortex the person. And that means you put him into another guessing situation. They have to guess a 50-50. And if they don't guess right, they'll most likely just lose the character. And, after the character dies, they have to take the incoming mix-up.
Right.
You have to block left and right. You have to, choose whether you want to block or not. And, if you decide to air dash, you can get air thrown. There are a lot of variables that come into that. So when you rinse and repeat the same formula, you basically don't get a chance to play. You don't get a chance to play. And that can be replicated so much. It's just unfathomably draining. That you get mentally drained really fast. Huh?
Or exciting.
Yeah,
and
exciting too. Yeah.
I think the incoming mix-up can be the most hyped thing in a Marvel match sometimes. Because
that is true.
9 times out of 10, if they're hit with incoming, they're probably going to die. Right? So
yeah,
it all rests on your ability to deal with the incoming mix-up. And I know I've gone bananas over stuff like that. Like you did something sick. I can't remember. You ended up losing, which I really wish you didn't lose. I think you were going against Multiply at Winter Brawl. And you did, I forget what it was you did. It was it was a final set or whatever. I think it might have been losers semis or losers final. Maybe you can tell me better. You ended up taking second or third. You lost to Multiply. But you did something sick. I can't remember what it was. I have to actually go back and find the video. But I know I jumped out my seat and ran almost out of the place. I thought you were going to win. I think you ended up dropping the combo, which is like happens in Marvel. But again, like the incoming, it's for me, it's so exciting. That's what it does for me. Like I'm like, oh my god, this guy got hit. Coming in, like how do you block? That's the regular term. How do you block that? Which way do you block? You hear Yipes commentary, and stuff like that. So do you remember that match in detail?
You said it was a winner brawl?
Yeah, I think that was the one that Cosmo ended up winning. It was a winner brawl. I think you lost to Marlon Pie.
I think I lost to. I think I lost to. I can't remember much. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the way I lost it was, I think I was going for a combo where I needed to kill Doom because Amy was left, and then I'll get incoming mix up. I think I was like fully powered up in terms of cubes with MODOK. I was running MODOK, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So I think I dropped the combo because I mistimed something. He just foot dived me, and then I just died from there because he just followed my lead, and that's it. It was just follow my lead, done. The win button.
The foot dive is either the best or the worst thing, like depending on who's receiving, who's doing it, right? Like you see foot dive,
yeah. That's definitely one of the things that separated the top tier characters from the the terrible characters. is that the top tier characters had a lot of very common traits that made a really good character in Marvel 3, and that was the ability to convert from one single hit, regardless of where they hit you.
Right.
Doom foot dive hit you. It's a hard knockdown, so you get all the time in the world. You can actually drop the controller, go make some pancakes and come back and pick it up. And Virgil has Homebreaker. It's a hard knockdown. And in
Right.
Morgan's case, she doesn't need that. If she had that, my God, I don't even know what the hell would have happened to us.
Oh my god.
But again, she has Shell Kick, like a million, like a million in terms of hits done. And then she has Shadow Blade to confirm in case the four framer is not good enough. But yeah, I don't remember much about that other than me trying to go for like the optimal stuff, because MODOK combos are like really hard, and sometimes it felt like for some reason when I pressed the button, it was either too early or too late, or I felt like some kind of lag. So at that point, it would be more me just guesstimating rather than having something accurate. But it must have been the first two options. Now the third was it was a little lag for the most part. But yeah, those combos are like really hard. So a lot of times you gotta keep things a little simpler. And I paid the ultimate prize, and you could see that I was winning, and then I just lost because of that one thing. Lost a combo. Marlene hit me with foot dive. It was not even something that he dropped out of the combo. No, foot dive. That's it. You didn't have time to process what happened. You just saw it happen, and then you were like, okay.
It's like,
Foot dive just happened again for the millionth time.
okay.
Like, damn, bro, not like this.
Not like this. Can't.
And you would just hear the crowd like.
I know you have some wins under your belt. What was your first major win, and what was that for you? Was that worth the heartache, the close finishes, the second places, the third places? Like, what did that feel like for you?
Okay, so when it comes to majors, I never won a major from 03, sadly. I only got second, third, fourth, fifth, second, bunch of times, but never got first place. But like in terms of tournaments, I won next level. I think I won like a House of Chaos for the first time. Give me a second, Roddy. Give me a second. Let me just put up the green screen.
Sure.
I'm gonna have to do this right now. I'm sorry to pause this really quickly. I'm gonna try to do as fast as possible.
Problem.
Okay.
No problem. I hope you guys have been enjoying so far. I'm gonna just give it a second to set up some stuff real quick. We always talk about our sponsors again. In the meantime, you want to check out acquire.ca. They're based in Canada. Great company. We get a 10% code off any purchase for our gear with the code KPB. So you can definitely use that. Also, you can also visit Saltamia, which again, as I mentioned before, awesome maker, like find stickers, keychains of your favorite FGC characters from different fighting games across the board. Check them out at saltamia.com. We also got Technisport, and you get 10% off any of their wonderful chairs with the code KPB. So you want to check them out. You want to check them out at technisport.com. We're back after a short break. We had to get Gilbert set up so you can do a special background. We continue for those listening, of course. Is doesn't matter. You can't see anything. But we're back with Gilbert, and Gilbert, we left off with talking about your wins, your tournament wins, second place.
Oh yeah,
you won a couple of locals. What is it? Is it something that you felt has eluded you? That major win? Now we know that Marvel 3 won't be on like the major stage again. In terms of like whenever we do get back to those offline tournaments. It's unlikely. I'm not saying never. It's unlikely. Stranger things have happened in this community. Do you feel that you missed out on winning? Would you seek that win in a future game? Should you come back to the FGC for another game or full time? Is that something that's been on your mind?
I in terms of coming back for another game, Yes, I will. I can't tell, which game it's going to be because at the time being, I'm just trying to be more stable in other areas. Financially speaking, that's one thing. Um, what else I was going to say? Oh yeah. So in terms of Marvel 3, I no longer have the drive I had back then to, get, the first place medal and whatnot. And the reason why is because I think I had accomplished a lot more than what I expected to accomplish because I didn't go into Marvel 3 competition expecting anything. I wanted to play the best people. I wanted to learn from the best people. I wanted to be where the best were at. And I think I had cemented myself there as, one of the people that you can't just be like, oh, you're fighting Punisher. Don't worry, you got this. It's, it was to the point where it's like, holy hell, you're fighting Punisher, bro. Are you ready? And I always found it funny because I never considered myself like that much of a threat. But again, it's just, expectations versus reality, right? In terms of one in the first place, I think I did that with NBCI when it mattered the most for me. That's one thing. So I did that with NBCI. I did it against someone who was just annihilating everybody, and it was Sonic Fox. I beat him at KIT in 2018. I put him in losers, and I took him out.
Yes.
Sonic Fox is, a great player and one of the most humble people I've ever seen in my life. And being able to, take him out of the tournament was a huge win that I will never forget. And being able to, beat other people and be like one of the top players yet again at another game was huge for me. I also won DreamHack in 2017. Yeah, the very end of 2017, which surprisingly was Sonic Fox who, gave me the plane ticket to get there because they were not gonna go to DreamHack since they had their eye on what is it called, on the Capcom Pro Tour kind of thing for MVCI.
Oh, the
Yeah,
Infinity Gauntlet.
yeah, the Infinity
That
Gauntlet
sounded
thing.
like
Yeah,
a crazy logistical mess. Like I don't know. Like I wasn't really invested in NBCI too much, to be honest. But I did hear about that Pro Tour and like the whole thing with beating someone and getting the gem and using those abilities. Was that viable, or it sounded from someone on the outside of it? Like, to be honest, was that a viable like tournament thing, or was it like a mess? Your opinion?
well, from what I heard, it was a mess. I like the idea behind it, but there were a lot of things that were not clear. When do you get to use your stone? Who uses it? How many times? All that. Right. There were some things were clear, some were not so much. And this was a complaint I heard a lot from a lot of the players who participated in that, especially, Claro 5, Chris G, of course. We already know about the Chris G rant, which, had like a lot more truth than, what I was expecting. Not because, he would try to cover some stuff, but because it was surprising that the event was run not that optimally, to put it lightly, and it was a shame. It was a shame that that was the thing, because holy hell, we're getting a new Marvel game, and we're banking it all on that new Marvel game. Let's do it. Let's do our best. Let's forget about about the graphics not being as great as Marvel 3. Let's just try to do our thing. Let's try to push it. Because again, the game didn't look as bad when you were playing it. It has, its rough edges.
I feel like you're not even thinking of graphics when you're playing a fighting game. I feel like
especially
you're thinking about
especially a game
surviving and winning.
Yeah,
and,
that is true. That is also true. Like you're like,
both characters.
That doesn't look like that. That doesn't look that shiny.
You're not thinking about not just like shiny. But you're thinking of, holy hell, why can't Dante just hit me like overhead from almost full screen? Capcom devs? Anybody? Because Dante was like super busted when the game came out, and then he remained like that. And even how the hell do you get nerfed from like top 1 to top 1? Like, dude, come on. I'm like, why is this guy so stupid good? Like, a lot of things could not be contested. But I would say Marvel Infinite was the game that just gave me, that one first place kind of thing. And I know this is gonna sound a little, what's the word for that? A little anticlimactic, but once I got first place, I feel like I was gonna feel much better. It just felt like just another tournament win for me.
I understand that.
And
yeah, it's like
it's not that it was not hard, because it was hard as hell.
right.
But it's like, I feel like the stress that you have to put yourself under just probably undermined it a little bit. And also, as I said before, your skill sometimes clouds your judgment on how hard it is to actually get these things. And I learned that big time when I tried to play Street Fighter 5, where I placed 5th place at next level in 2018. And we're talking about like going against Item, and I was about to beat him there. I was about to beat him like 2-1, and I messed up. And of course, it's Item is a robot. I love my boy. Item, you're a robot. We know that. But yeah, other than that, I fought against some of the great people up there, and it was great, seeing how much of a struggle it was to even make it past like the 0-2. I fully understood where the hell I was at and why people were so excited about me in Marvel 3, because Marvel 3 was not a game for everybody. Marvel 3 was the game that would just make you look like you don't know how to play.
Yes,
because you get steamrolled so fast. Oh my god, so fast! It's like, wow, I dropped like close to like $25 just to come and show people how badly I got beaten up.
Yeah, how much I can block.
Yeah.
Do you even need to block in the game? You just gotta hit first.
In Marvel 3?
Yeah, you don't have to block. You gotta hit first.
A lot of times, yeah. A lot of times you have to block with your head first.
What's blocking?
Funny. You're like, hey man, listen, you play so well. And you're like, yeah, bro, I just didn't have to block once. Sometimes it goes like that. It's like, how many times do you block? None.
None.
How many times do you get hit? And you're like, yes.
Yes, you're gonna get hit.
Oh my god, dude, like Marvel 3 was definitely something of its own. I still enjoy it, but it's like the amount of shenanigans the game has is just off the charts. Phoenix level 3 X Factor.
Oh jeez.
Dark Phoenix level 3 X Factor. Oh, you just won the game, but wait, you just lost, bro. You just gave it back the game. And it was funny because for me, for some reason I felt some kind of like joy fighting that. Well, after I started playing MODOK, of course, and it was because I infused that feeling of powerlessness in people when they know that even though they got Dark Phoenix, they got to deal with some random ass stuff.
You got to deal with something
like, oh yeah, you got MODOK. You don't know if Punisher is just gonna full screen super and hit you and then confirm full screen. You don't know if he's gonna team super. And now you gotta think, because if you lose, holy hell, dude, how do you lose? You had Dark Phoenix level 3 X Factor.
You get popped by a cube. What?
And you got popped by a cube, or you just got hit by a log, bro. You were mashing. You were just like, beep, 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 and then lock trap, and you're like,
lock trap is so debilitating. It's one of those things that he has it, but you somehow seem to forget that it's there. Like you know very well Raccoon's problems against like and yet the long shot has to be one of the most, or like, how did you get hit by that? You had to know he was going to use it, and it's just
the thing about long shot
flat.
Oh yeah, that is it is just so demoralizing to get hit by long shot.
It is. It truly is,
because it's super slow to start up, but once it gets going, I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, especially in where it spawns. He catches people so off guard, because I saw a lot of people just super jumping and like just throwing the beams, boom, and doom. I'm like, hi, chachito. I'm like, I'm gonna get you, boy. I mean, just keep doing that. Teleport. They do it again. Lock trap. Full screen. Confirm.
Oh my God.
And you just get put into the blender once again. Time to guess, boy. And oh my God, people just felt so stupid because once they were on the corner and they jumped, I had a boulder that would get activated the moment they jumped and they would block. But I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to cross you up right now. You're not going to be able to see it. Boing.
Yeah. Boing. That's it. Oh man. Who are some of your favorite like protagonists and antagonists in the community? Like personality that you just in the mall community specifically.
Yeah. Okay. So my favorites. Let me see. Reed is one, of course. I'm biased as hell when it comes to Reed. Ray, Steve. Steve is like one of my biggest antagonists because I love Steve in real life, but I hate him as a player. I wish nothing but the worst for him. And Marvel Infinite, was like my way to pay him back. I mean, my way to get my payback.
Yeah.
Because now when he saw me, he would just look at me like, bro, like we don't have to do this. Like he was just afraid of playing Raccoon because Raccoon was broken in that game. But yeah, Steve is like my all-time, like one of my all-time rivals. It's just like, it's just amazing because he just beat me up so much during my early days. And I hated that his team just had to touch any of my characters once. And that's it. I just didn't get to play. He would just beat you. And he was like, and do his combo and just be like nothing's happening. Oh yeah, it's just another regular day in training mode. Here I come, boy. I'm just, you're not going to block this mix up because, it's so layered. I don't even know what's going on. You're going to get hit right now. And then you would just lose. And I would just be so salty. I would give him like the saltiest handshake. Just looking at him like, look at this. I'm like, look at this move. Just look at him like, how can you just play and just look at people like this when you have these stupid ass mix-ups?
How do you live with yourself? This Coach Steve we're talking about, by the way.
And,
Coach Steve.
And Coach Steve, yeah, definitely. I love him. He's a great dude. He's also one of the people who helped me, grow the most in the community because he just ignited that fuel every time we played. I'm like, I have a goal to get to. I need to beat him, and I need to beat everybody who plays like him. That was like, I need to get there. And Ray was like, I would say, even though I admire him, it was like one of my all-time rivals as well. But not in the level of the same level of Steve, because it was more of a personal in-game type of thing. But Ray was just like, he was just so much better than me. He would just outplay me in the neutral, and his movement was just impeccable. So beating Ray for the first time was just exasperating. I was like, wow, I just can't believe it, dude. I never thought it was going to be possible because I just kept on losing to him for the longest time. And, of course I had a character limitation and whatnot. But, when it finally happened, I started to understand some patterns and, I got to beat him a couple times and it just got better and better. I got better and better. And who else? Flux was another one too. But it was a funny one because he plays Zero May Cry, right? Flux was also a very smart player. So it was not like stupid ass zero player. He's doing the stupid things. No, he was a very smart player with a very cheap team. Right. So there was that in that regard. Let me see who else. Marlon Pie is like also one of the people I love playing against the most because he's just so creative, so down to earth, so informative to also learn things from. And he's also got an amazing personality. Like I've been to his plays a bunch of times to grind some Marvel, and the guy is just great through and through. Like he's as great as he is in the game, as in real life. And it was great. It was just great. It was just great for the most part. Like I've seen that as a common thing when it came to a lot of people in the FGC. And yeah, him, Ryan LV, I played against him in PSG in 2017, I think it was, and I beat him. And I'm just sad that I beat him, but we were not playing on stream. I was just so sad. And I was running.
That's a tough match. That's a tough player.
Yeah,
champion,
Brian LV. Evo champion as well. And dude is super humble. It's actually, just heartwarming just watching him now and remembering how he used to lose back in the days, because back in the days his name used to be like a Shadow Rusher, and people used to make fun of him. It was like Shadow Rusher, more like Shadow Runner. This guy's just running away and just building meter. And then he changed his name to like Shadow Runner. I'm like, oh my god, yeah. But I beat him, but then I put him in Infinite. He was still great in the game. Like, he's just a great player overall. Like, his discipline is just unparalleled. So I'll tell you that much. Scamby is actually one of my favorite people to play, because I trained him Level 3. I took him under my wing. I taught him everything I knew. I said, listen, you got potential. You just got to learn the basics and roll with it, because I think that you can get pretty far, but you have not optimized your team.
Right.
So once you do that, you'll go places. But you have to stick one thing into your mind: your team is trash.
But he's gone pretty far with that team. I have to hand it to him. Like,
he's
upsetted a lot of folk.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that was always been the question with Scamby, right? Like, if he had what was considered to be a viable team, how far would he take it? So,
much further than that. I think he would have actually taken like second place and third place fairly consistently. A lot of majors. He only had.
But I don't blame him.
Like,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. You're saying it right. You don't blame him, because he loves the lore. He loves the Resident Evil franchise. Right. And I told him, listen, this is the path of the low tier. You already know it from me. I've come a long way. I played, stupid ass Iron Fist. It sucks, and I didn't want to admit that. It was just pride and too much love, too much blind love for a character that I should have dropped a long time ago. And it was not even like, oh yeah, the fans and blah blah blah. No, it was just that he sucked, but I loved him. And the reason why I played Iron Fist was because I couldn't play Ryu because of the down super on pad.
Right.
So yeah, Scamby is definitely like one of the hypest people you can play against, because he's super creative. I told him, listen, you got to use this, you got to use that. You can, and he, based on that and me coaching him, he was able to be Flocker at what is this tournament?
ECT?
The Full Classic.
Is it Focus?
Yeah, it was the Full Classic.
Oh no, he beat KBR at ECT. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, he beat KBR at ECT twice, I think.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I was not even there, but I was just losing my mind, just screaming at the screen. I'm like, oh, Scamby, you're ridiculous. I was just losing it. Oh my God. It's just so amazing to see someone grow so much. Someone you've helped, someone you've seen from, their former days, where, everybody just laughed at and made fun of. Like, bro, you're fine, bro. You're just playing Scamby. And no, just now going from... You're gonna fight the bum ass Scamby. I'm like, and go from like that to, dude, oh my God, you gotta fight Scamby, bro.
Gotta fight Scamby. Oh crap!
Like you don't know, you already know the stuff is real when that's the thing that comes out of people's mouth.
Don't jump,
that is the thing. You got beat up by Scamby. Hold that
up.
I wish he had gone to Evil. I wish.
He definitely needed to get out there and get most. And I know he's playing some Dragon Ball FighterZ. He's still on the scene.
He's ridiculous in that game.
Grinding, and I definitely wish him the best of success moving forward. I want to thank you definitely for you just taking the time out. I know you're busy, man. You got a lot of things to do. Before you go, I just wanted to know, what were your plans for the future? Assuming you personally, you get to the goals you wanted to make, being social and being amongst each other become the thing again, and we can come back to events. Do you see yourself returning to fighting games? Eventually, professionally with your career, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I wanna take a different approach this time around, and what I want to do is I want to do a lot more content creation. At the moment, I have a limitation, and that is the place where I live is very small. I share with different people. I share with my mother and my sister, and the other thing is just the Hispanic kind of stuff is like, oh, people just show out at your place. I don't just show up at your place. I don't know it. They're like, "Hey, Primo, I'm here," or you just random on too. And I'm like, I just dislike that to no end because there's no sense of privacy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the reasons why I've been a lot more absent lately. One, because of my job, because I'm working 40 hours now, even though that's a regular thing. And the other thing is now, when I'm free, I'm really not available because I don't have the space. There's someone behind, there's someone screaming, or there's so many things going on right now that I'm just trying to remain, as sane as possible, mentally
Right.
speaking. Neighbors is blasting music. So my main goal is to do a lot more content creation, to do a lot more teaching, because I enjoy teaching a lot, and that's one thing I wanna do. And one thing I've promised to do that I haven't been able to deliver on is doing the Modog tutorial, the Rocket Raccoon guide. The I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a Hawkeye guide because I don't feel like I'm actually that qualified to do a Hawkeye guide. It's not so much that whether I'm good or not, because you don't have to be good to do a guide. You just have to know your material.
Right.
And I haven't played a Hawkeye in a while, but I think I can still do that, but later on. I also want to do the projectile durability from Marvel 3 tutorial, because a lot
Yes.
of people don't know. A lot of people don't know about the durability points and how they work and whatnot. That's still like an enigma for some reason. And that's the thing that I have the script written already for me to start doing voiceover. But eventually, like, I really want to move out and live on my own. It's going to be a really tough thing to accomplish. But I
Mm.
want to do that because I want to be able to accomplish these other things. I want to stream
Right.
also. Like, I want to have a consistent schedule where I just go home. Okay, I have this time. I'm going to stream. I'm going to talk to my people, grow my audience and whatnot. And I also want to build tools using programming, right? To I don't know, to make other things that were not possible before possible. There's a lot of things that are not there because there hasn't been someone with the interest to make them, because
Right.
they have been possible for the longest time. Like, one thing I was thinking about was making a tool that would just record your inputs, and you can just have like a program, right, where you would just take that file that you saved to doing those inputs, right, and just send it to someone. Hey, dude, look, this is a combo that I'm doing. You send it, and the moment they plug it in, it does the combo for you. You can see how the combo looks like, rather than
Okay.
just sending someone like a video or something like that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so
You can
that's what
do
I
it.
want
You
to. I
can
want to
make
do more
these
content
things.
creation.
We definitely need more, apps. Of course, they're like apps that are coming from people in the community that create, to help
Hmm.
understand fighting games. Even if it's just
Yeah.
like a database on frame data. You got like Tech
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Chicken for the tech community. I
Yeah.
know the guy, who does that, stuff like that. And we definitely need more of that in the community. So I hope to see some of your
Hmm.
stuff in the future for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope
Thank you,
I'm
man.
able to deliver that.
Definitely, definitely. How can we reach you? How can anyone that sees this reach out to you, say on social media? How can they contact you?
Well, they can contact me on my Twitter at PunisherX6, and probably on Facebook. You can look me up as Gilbert Matos. Pretty much on YouTube is GBTX6. That's for my fighting game channel. That's where I post Marvel stuff and whatnot. And on Twitch, you can catch me on Treblig. That is Gilbert, spelled backwards for the people who don't know. So it's Treblig underscore Punisher. And you can also follow me there if you want to. I stream from time to time. Whenever I get the chance in the space. But Twitter is the place where you can reach me out. With the most success rate possible.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time, Mr. Matos. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors one more time. I want to give a shout out to saltymedia.com. Check them out for some fine FGC stickers, keychains, accessories. I want to give a shout out to Technisport. Use the code KPB to save $10 to save 10%, off your order. And also with acquire.ca, where you use KPB to also save 10% on your order. With that, this is Rodimus Prime, and I'm wishing you guys the best. Until next time, take care and see you soon. Later, guys.
Later.
This has been a KPB Media Works production.